All right, Maria Daniels here with Successfully Chaotic, and today we're doing Successfully Chaotic live behind the scenes. And I have Del Hall, and I made up your name, Mr. Beer Diet. I
Yeah.
was like trying to think. I was like, I don't really know a whole lot about him to really write a bunch of stuff, so I decided I was going to make up a name for you. And I don't know if you had one before that, but that was one that I gifted you, and you're welcome. Or I'm sorry, I'm not sure which one.
Yeah. So I like all my friends make fun of me and say they call me beer fasting Ohio man
Beer
because like
fasting Ohio man.
all the big shows, so like Jimmy Fallon, the Late Late Show with James Corden, Ellen DeGeneres, when they talk about me, they always say,
Yeah.
"Hey, this Ohio man or the beer fasting Ohio man."
Beer. I love that. So I'll have to go back in there and edit that to say beer fasting Ohio man.
I like the
Hopefully I'll
beer. I
remember that.
mean, I've been using the hashtag beer diet a lot
Yeah. What?
because my grand scheme in all of this is to write a diet book and how to incorporate beer into a healthy lifestyle.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I like the moniker of beer diet guys. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Beer diet guy, Mr. Beer Diet. Yeah. I don't know. These are the things that I do. And then, sometimes they work out well. And sometimes people are like, I'm not loving it. I'm not loving it. I'm like, sorry about that.
Yeah.
So let's talk a little bit for people that are tuning in that have no idea what we're even talking about. They're like, beer diet. Kind of give a little introduction about who you are and what the heck we're talking about.
Yeah. So I'm Del Hall, and I own 16 Lots Brewing Company in Mason, Ohio, right outside of Cincinnati. And I've been in beer in the beer industry for about a decade now. And way back in the day, when you first learn how to sell beer, right? So you're marketing beer. One of the best ways of learning that is little anecdotes, little
Yeah.
romance stories about different beer. And the most famous one is the IPA, right? The India
Hmm.
Pale Ale. And basically, the story goes that when India was a colony of England, they would transport beer from England to India, and it would spoil along the route. So they figured out that okay, hops are a preservative, and they would put a lot of hops in the beer. Well, the people transporting the beer started drinking it along the way and loving having all the hops in the beer. So a very hoppy beer now is called an India Pale Ale or an IPA.
I did not know that.
Yeah. So there's other stories too, like the guys that would carry all the luggage on freight liners and the big steamships in London. They were called porters, and they liked a stronger beer that was more roasty and hearty. So the style of beer named porter is named after them.
Oh,
Right. So there's all these little things like that.
I like
So
porters, so
there's a
I'm
beer
hearty.
style called Doppelbock, which
Okay.
in German means a double Bock beer.
Okay.
And Bock is it's named after a town called Eisbach, but Bock in German means goat. All these little things. So you learn these stories. Well, Doppelbock was purported to sustain monks back in the 1600s. So these monks moved from Italy to Germany, and they wanted to establish that they were the holiest and most devout followers of the church. And to do that, while everyone else was going to give up something for Lent, they decided they're giving up everything for Lent. They're going to give up all solid food, and they were going to sustain themselves on this beer called a Doppelbock. It was a heartier version of the town's beer, which was a Bock. So it had more calories, more sustenance. Basically they call it liquid bread.
Yeah.
So I've told these stories for years and years, and you don't know if they're true or not. They're romance, they're marketing.
Hmm.
And I guess I felt like I was watching like Mythbusters, and I loved that where they put something to the test and they
Yes.
say, is this true or not? We're gonna find out. We're gonna mythbust this. Well, I
Hmm.
decided to do that with me and with beer. And I was like, at this time, this was 3 years ago, I had learned enough about intermittent fasting. I had gone down like the keto road and time restricted eating, all those good things, and done some prolonged water fasts that I thought, this is probably feasible. You could probably do this. So I decided to do it. So 3 years ago was the first time I took on the beer fast, And basically I challenged myself to go the 46 days of Lent and only drink beer. So all calories comes from beer. I have a little bit of black coffee. I have a little bit of just unsweetened herbal tea, all the water I can drink, but everything else, I don't even chew gum, no artificial sweeteners, no soda, no, nothing like that. Everything that I get is from beer. And the first year I did it was 2019. And it, it blew my mind. Not only was I surprised that I could do it, right? So I went the whole 46 days. Out of the 46 days, I lost 44 pounds,
Oh, wow.
42 of which was all body fat. I filmed the whole thing documentary style. So from the first to the last, I even went to the doctor, just like, like in Super Size Me, and Morgan Spurlock did
Mm-hmm.
that. So I went to my doctor, interviewed my doctor, got my blood work and physicals done, and then I did that at the end as well. Well, lo and behold, I mean, I felt amazing. I'm in my mid 40s. I felt like I was in my 20s again, but all markers of health improved. My cholesterol improved, my blood pressure improved, my fasting blood sugar improved, all markers of health improved, and I felt like $1,000,000. So I thought there's got to be something to this.
That's awesome. And I love that you were that you were like, you know what, Mythbusters, let's see if I die. Let's just see. Let's just try this out. That's my mentality on a lot of things too. I'm like, let's just try it. What could happen? Let's just
Right.
try it. So did you have a lot of naysayers? Did you have people going, oh my God, Dale, you can't do that?
Yeah. So basically, I learned firsthand what going viral really means in today's world, right?
Yeah.
So that first year, I did it and had no idea that I was going to get any kind of press coverage. Didn't even think about that I could tie this to some sort of a charity and a fundraiser, right? And then all of a sudden, the local news like came out and interviewed me and did a story, and then the next day they played that same story like 4 times, including the headline news, and then that was it. Like the next day, I woke up to Boston, Massachusetts, Miami, Florida, Dallas, Chicago, New York, LA, just
Yeah.
interview request after interview request, and after about a week of everything you could think of in the U.S., then it went international. Then it was, I was doing radio shows in Dublin, Ireland on St. Patty's Day. I was being interviewed by, Sweden and the Ukraine, and it was ridiculous. So that first year, I was on TV and radio over 500 times in 50 different countries.
Was it overwhelming?
It was.
Yeah.
It was. I'm now, I've learned a lot since then, obviously. Like now I have a publicist and,
Yeah.
and a marketing firm behind me. But before that, it was just me booking all those radio shows, booking all the press and doing all the TV interviews. So it was really overwhelming.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, if you've never had any kind of attention at all, you think that's a good thing until you get some and you're like, whoa, wait a minute. So, did you have a lot of people saying negative things to you, or was it primarily pretty
Yeah.
supportive? A lot
No,
of negative.
and I guess the whole point of that like rant about the publicity was I learned not to read comments.
Yeah. Yeah.
So now I'm just like a duck, right? The rain just rolls right off my back. So I don't read comments. But there was at that first year so many people that were naysayers that just thought, hey, this is a publicity stunt. He's an alcoholic. He's trying to hide his alcoholism.
There's so many other ways to do that.
It really is. I mean, it's like, so there was a ton of naysayers, and then a ton of people also that, kind of like those armchair nutritionists and things like that were just like, you can't live on beer alone. Like you'll die. You can't do that. Knowing full well, like I had enough body fat on me to sustain myself. Knowing
Yeah.
that, evolutionary wise, we came from a hunter-gatherer society, and that, our body goes through points of feast and famine, and that, we're never going to get to the point where you're eating your muscle and your organs before your body fat. So as long as you have some body fat on you, if you get below like 10%, that's a different story. But I'm rolling at like 30% body fat. I can go
You're like, I got this. I
could go a long time without eating.
Absolutely.
In
I'm gonna
fact,
hop
I'm
over
happy
the
to be with you right now.
See, I'm really jealous because all I've got's water. So, but I am going to hop over the comments real quick. We've got Tina Marie Trimpert with the Psychedelic Podcast, and I don't know if she's flirting with me or you, but hey, Tina, we love you. And she was laughing at some of the stuff we were saying. But Tim said, beer diet, you had me at hello. So here's another supporter for you.
Yeah. Hang on 1 second, right?
You're good. You're good.
1 second.
And Tim, I don't know, Guinness. I used to love Guinness. Fun fact, I can't drink it anymore. A really, 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 really bad night of Irish car bombs pretty much done it for me. So, but they used to be my favorite as far as beers go. So,
and I'm back.
And Tina said beer buster instead of ball buster. I'm picking out my favorite comments because they're funny. So, and Tim also wants to see if he can convince his wife that rocking the calories Guinness style is a good idea. And I feel like, Dell has a documentary style, I guess video. Do you have that posted somewhere where Tim could use that as an example to say, listen, honey, I mean, this has been proven.
Yeah. I mean, if you go to my YouTube, so look at under Sergeant Dell. So Sergeant Dell is like my moniker on most things. I'm a 9-year Army veteran. So, if you go to Sergeant Dell on YouTube, you can check out some of those. I didn't know how much editing went into something that was going to be like feature length, and it was overwhelming. So I have a bunch of raw footage still that I'm trying to get through. So my YouTube channel has a bunch of clips of the journey.
That's awesome. And he was giving you props. He said, like, you legit trolled the Karens with beer, and he couldn't be prouder. He also has a question. He said, what beer are you drinking right now? You're drinking lunch. What are you drinking?
Yeah, so I'm actually drinking one of mine. So this is my Soak City IPA.
All right.
And this is a juicy IPA. And I just redesigned the cans at the brewery. So
I like
you
them.
can find these in Southern Ohio anywhere cans are sold. But yeah, I'm what's known in the beer world as a hophead. So I love hoppy beers. And so I drink an IPA.
So that's your favorite. That's your go-to. Do you like all types of beer?
I really do.
Okay.
There's the only beer I don't like is there's a beer called a Rausch beer. That's a German style.
Yeah.
And it basically is a smoked beer. Right. So a lot of them taste like liquid bacon, and it's too much.
Sound good to me.
I love bacon.
Yeah.
Right? I love bacon. I don't want to drink it though. I'm also not a big fan of like pepper beers. So it was a trend, 4 or 5 years ago that you would put like habaneros or jalapenos in beer. And that was another thing. It's like, I like spicy food, but I want to eat it. I don't want to drink it.
Yeah. I've seen pickle beers. I'm very picky on beers. Like I'm more of a wine person. Like I like dry red wines, but I also like tequila, but Tequila Maria is a whole different Maria. So we have to watch with the tequila, but I do like some beers. I'm very particular. And I was telling them, but when you had to get off screen for a minute, that I used to love like Guinness. Like I used to love Guinness, but I had a really bad night of Irish car bombs that killed that for me. But I still like the darker beers typically. Yeah. But Irish car bombs done it in. I was like, not loving that anymore.
Right. So that's there's a psychological term for that. It's called a conditioned taste aversion.
Okay. Well, there you go. Got that.
So when you have that taste of something and then you have a bad experience associated with that, you're conditioned then to always not enjoy that. Yeah. And it takes a long time to get out of that.
Yeah. So it's been about 13 years. It's probably like staying at this point, but yeah, I like I like ambers. I still tend to like kind of darker, but again, as I can't do anymore, but I tend to like darker beers. IPAs typically are my least favorite, but I've not tried a lot of beers. So I think I've tried like 2 IPAs in my life. So I guess that's not really good scientific method of saying I don't like something.
Yeah. Well, send me your address offline, and I'm going to send you some of my beer.
I'm fairly local. I can just hop in. I'll just hop in. Pun definitely intended. Absolutely. I will hop in.
that would be awesome. But IPAs are very polarizing because they are so bitter. Back in the 90s, they used to run like Keystone used to run that bitter beer face. Like, don't drink that beer. Ooh, and they would have the bitter beer face. But it's one of those things too that's kind of like, you don't just start out by drinking black coffee. Yeah. Right. It's like you're in college or the military and like you need to stay up and you start putting some cream and sugar in it and things like that. You build your way up to it. You don't go straight to like, oh, I drink my bourbon neat. You
Yeah.
put ice in it and you kind of work your way up. It's the same
Yep.
thing. Hops are one of those ones that it's very polarizing. It takes some getting accustomed to.
Which I have to try it because I mean, you're totally right. I used to hate dry red wine. I thought it was disgusting. I was like, why do people drink this?
See?
And now I absolutely love it. The drier, I mean, I just like it. I just like it dry. I don't like
Yeah.
sweet at all. And even with, you mentioned bourbon, I drink it neat. And I used to take one half sip of bourbon and be like, oh,
Yep.
and now I like it, which Blanton's is my favorite. Blanton's is my jam as far as bourbon goes. But
Yeah.
super got to drink it neat. But yeah, I'll definitely, I guess, I mean, you have inspired me to try it. You've inspired
Yes.
me to try it again. Cause typically
And
I was like,
and I'll give you a hint too, because this happens a lot with when I'm doing beer tastings or things like that, and someone says they don't like IPA. What they'll do is they'll take a small portion, right? They'll take like a sip or an ounce, and they'll say, "Hey, this is the IPA, and it's a bitter beer." Well, hops have a cumulative effect on your palate. So if you drink 1 ounce of it, it's going to taste really astringent and kind of strong, and it's going to be very bitter. The more you drink, it actually coats your palate and kind of prepares you for that next drink, so it's not as a shock to your palate. So if you commit to drinking an IPA, drink 8 ounces, like a half a pint.
okay.
Don't drink like a couple sips like, I don't like this. Drink a half a pint and then tell me how that IPA tastes.
It's science. I mean, it has to
It really
be. I
is.
mean, yeah. I mean, so let's kind of rewind it. You mentioned you were in the army for 9 years. So what, other than probably drinking a lot of beer while you were in the army, because we know how military guys are, let's just
Yeah.
say that. But other than that, what really inspired you to kind of get into the beer business?
Yeah. So, I'm half Irish, half Scottish.
Okay.
So I've always been
It's in your
around.
blood.
Yeah, I've always been around beer. I've always been around, like
Yeah.
even well, I was going to say all the men in my family, I was born in the 70s, but even the women, all my sisters, my mom, everyone, everyone drank beer growing up. And then, learning my way through, I used to be married, and my father-in-law was also a military guy that spent time overseas, and he used to drink like English beers a lot. And then when I got sent to Germany, it was like game over. Like, because in Germany, beer was so cheap, it was half the price of a Coca-Cola. And, like every little town had their own brewery. So it was amazing to drink all those great beers. And I thought to myself, I'm never going to drink that cheap, light American beer again. When I get
Yeah.
back to the States, that's it. I'm drinking the good stuff. And I kind of, that was the late 90s. And, that I never looked back. I've been drinking that, ever since. Although now I've come back around to where I drink a lot of the lighter stuff. Like Coors Banquet is almost like always in my fridge.
I've not had
So
that. It's high
maybe
school
in
burnt me
Golden,
out on
Colorado.
any of that kind of stuff. Like high school, like Bush and like Budweiser, like all that stuff. And like high
Yep.
school killed me on all that.
Yeah. If you're
So
gonna have a conditioned taste aversion, that's the kind of stuff you want to have an aversion to.
yeah, exactly. It's not good. I'd say, yeah, craft beers is definitely where it's at. And I love the craft beer community because it really is a community. And my company has done a lot of work with a lot of different, breweries and such. And I love the camaraderie. The
Yeah.
camaraderie is better, honestly, than most other businesses or industries that you can find because it's not so much of a competition because everybody's beer is so different. And I mean, you can attest to this probably than anybody else. I mean, I've definitely seen my clients actually drinking beer at each other's establishments because it's like, okay, yeah, of course I love my beer, but I also love this awesome beer that you have. And I go over here and drink some of that. Have you found that that's true for your establishment that you all really,
Absolutely.
yeah,
So there are 60 craft breweries just in Cincinnati, Ohio.
yeah,
And we all know each other. We all drink each other's stuff. We consider it all craft love. We help each other where we can. Our Facebook groups are very active where we say, hey, I'm out of this malt or I'm out of this hop. Does someone have some I can borrow or I
yeah.
can buy back? Things like that. It's a really, really good supportive community. And that's why like the only, like the big guys, like the Anheuser-Busch's, the Budweisers,
Yeah.
and they get a bad rap because, they're known as like the evil empire, and that they don't have the craft brewers' best interest at heart, and that's the only kind of black eye on our industry.
Yeah. Which I mean that can be said for a lot of, quote unquote big business that goes on is, it always feels like it's trying to squash the little guy. They're able to
Yep.
buy big, buy cheaper and, keep their price points lower. But honestly, I always tell people all the time that obviously you get what you pay for. So, a craft beer may be a little bit more expensive, but there's literally like time and love that's gone into everyone that's been
Yeah.
brewed.
Yeah. Well, it's like, when I talk about like just economics and I talk about, especially like during this pandemic and everything else, and talk about supporting small business, if you go into a small business, such as a bar or a restaurant, and you want to purchase a beer, so you're supporting that small business by buying their product. But
Yep.
then you can also double that and support a small business locally by buying a local small business. So now that same dollar, it's being divided up amongst two small businesses instead of just one, or some of that money going to, overseas, like, to, or the big corporations.
Yep, absolutely. And I mean, that's right there is what needs to happen to really continue to spur economic growth. We hear that term thrown around all the time, economic development, economic growth. And that right there, what you
Yep.
just said is really how you start to see a big change as you keep those dollars in the community as long as possible.
Absolutely. Yeah. And that's an argument for the whole, buy local that,
Hmm.
everyone's pushing.
Absolutely. So kind of speaking about that, did last year, I know it hit the bars. I'm assuming that trickled down
Yep.
to the breweries. Has that started to kind of come out of that a little bit, or are you all kind of still in the middle of the
Yeah, so
con-
it started to come out a little bit. Basically, the beer industry is divided into kind of two markets. We
Mhm.
we say it's on premise and off premise. On premise are the bars and restaurants where you actually consume beer and liquor and spirits and wine on premise, or it's off premise, which is where you would buy it to go and you would consume it off the premise of that business. Those are the two markets. Um, the headlines were, during the pandemic, that beer sales, liquor sales, wine sales were through the roof. And what that was really talking about was the off-premise side of it.
Yeah.
It was people were going to the grocery store, buying cans of beer, taking them home and drinking them, but
Yeah.
going to an actual bar or restaurant wasn't happening at all. And in my world, in craft beer, so if you think of draft beer, right? That's what everyone thinks of when you think
Hmm.
of like bars and restaurants. That was down 95% in
Wow.
2020,
Yeah.
even though, off premise can sales were up 50%. Well, that it doesn't equate. That's a huge loss still in the alcohol business.
Absolutely. I know we've we as far as my company goes, we were supposed to put on several large events last year that got squashed. And, it's terrible whenever you're having to go back to these companies that you made the deal with, that you were going to make money, they were going to make money, and it's like squashed.
Yep.
And, I think it's kind of one of those things that, you know, I don't know that we're going to be able to recoup what we lost, but it is something to be said for really pushing forward and trying to figure out the what's next. And that's what I keep telling people because I've had these meetings like, well, we lost this, we lost that, we lost this, and it sucks. I mean, a lot of people
Yep.
lost a lot of dollars as far as revenue and stuff goes. But, we've seen as things start to open back up, there is a need for experience. I mean, there always been a need for experience, but there really is a need for experiences now. People want to more than ever get out there and feel something that's normal again.
Yep.
Are you all seeing? Are you all open to the public as of right now, or
Yeah.
kind of how? Okay.
Yeah. So our brewery can seat, and normally our capacity is 199.
Okay.
Since COVID and the social distancing protocols we had to put in place, we can fit about 99. So it's
Okay.
about half of
Nope.
that.
Nice. Yeah.
The patio can fit about 50 people on the
Yep.
patio, but
Yep.
we're just at that point where that's being feasible, right? All
Yeah.
winter long, we couldn't really use the
Yeah.
patio.
Yep.
We're just now getting to the point where the patio season's upon us and we can start using that again. But we actually, there's other options. So we're looking at, some outdoor tinning that we could put, because when all this happened, they relaxed the alcohol laws. So,
Mm-hmm.
an establishment with a liquor license used to be you couldn't take a drink into the parking lot,
Yep.
right? If it was the patio, there was always signs that said no alcohol beyond this point.
Yeah.
Well,
Unless it
since
was an entertainment district.
yeah, so since
Yeah.
COVID, we now have the ability to go to the edge of our parking lot. So
Mm-hmm.
now we can put a tent out in the parking lot. You can put, tables out there and serve the public.
Absolutely. So we do a lot of work with travel and tourism industries, which
Yep.
obviously you all would be considered in that. So it's not only like the breweries and the bars and the restaurants, but even, hotels. And it's been this big trickle down effect. Has your establishment kind of had meetings to decide, how to best approach, as things are just continue to open up
Right.
more, how to really drive not only economic development, but travel, tourism, all the things. Is it something that, you all have had discussions on and you could give advice to anybody listening now?
Yeah, I mean, we obviously mull that around, a lot. And one of the biggest things that I've done, Mason, Ohio is a tourist
Mm-hmm.
town, and it is because of one big corporation that we have there, and that's Kings Island,
Mm-hmm.
right? So most people have heard of Kings Island as an amusement park. It was, on the Brady Bunch back in the
Yeah.
day.
Yep.
So we do have, quite a bit of tourism, that comes through there. I've worked with the local Chamber of Commerce a lot to make sure that we're represented as best we can at Kings
Absolutely.
Island, which is going to be the major driver. And then all those
Mm-hmm.
ancillary businesses outside of that, there's a place called Great Wolf Lodge,
Mm-hmm.
where it's a water park kind of resort, indoor stay, where, we have corporate, rates. So someone can come in, they can get a corporate rate from, mentioning in 16 lots, go over and stay there. But really, that's the biggest part, is just making sure you're connected with the community itself and tackling it as a whole. Because if you try to do it yourself, I mean, that's, there's very few businesses that, are that big of a draw, that, that high rise, or that, the high tide's going to raise all ships. Right.
Yep.
So you kind of, to kind of circle back to your original question, there's 2 other breweries in Mason, Ohio. We've kind of bonded together and came together as well and said, let's see if there's an opportunity out there. If
Mm-hmm.
it's a sponsorship, if it's, something that's going to get some notoriety, and it's too big, for any one of us, well, how about if the 3 of us combine and do that, and do the sponsorship or do the festival that's coming up this summer and things like that. So we try to help out as much as possible. You also got to tiptoe around like collusion and antitrust laws, being in the same industry and sharing of information. So
Yep.
we are very cognizant of that, because the alcohol industry has been cracked down on that kind of thing for years and years.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, I think you hit the nail on the head. It definitely takes a community. And of course, you're not going to give them the keys to your castle, as in your specific recipes for whatever, but
Yeah.
you do want to share the love for your community, share the love for giving people great experiences, share the love for giving people great beer. And I think that right there is what it's going to take to really that is the new normal. We hear this term, the new normal, the new normal, the new
Yeah.
normal. And it's so annoying. I actually hate that term. I'm like, I'm taking it back. Taking it
Yeah.
back. So the way to take it back is the new normal is the idea that we're having to work as a community, because, a lot of some businesses were already doing that, but there were so many that kind of squirreled away on their own because they never had to tap into their community.
Yep.
And now they have to. I mean,
Yeah.
it's kind of one of those things that it is a necessary thing that really should have been necessary anyway, but that community networking, really drives experience. We know, it's a common term that we do business with who we know, like, and trust. And it's true. I could go and get a beer everywhere, but if I'm in Mason, I've had this conversation with you. We've made an emotional connection. I'm coming to having beer at your place.
Yeah.
That's just how it is.
Well, I mean, you keep using the word experience.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's really key, because, there's so many options now that you want to provide someone an experience. You can go have a beer a lot of places.
Yeah.
But what's going to differentiate myself from the market is that I'm going to provide you a drinking experience.
Mm-hmm.
So when you first set foot in my tap room, I want you to feel you're now transported. You're not in the suburbs. You're not in Cincinnati, Ohio. You're now on the set of a movie,
Mm-hmm.
right? So my decor is going to like transport you. You're going to see really interesting things and say like, oh, this is, like I feel like this is different.
Yep.
Then I'm going to take you through the tap list, and the tap list is not going to be your run of the mill. It's going to have everything. It's going to have the traditional German styles. It's going to have traditional American styles. Then it's going to have some sour beer and some bourbon barrel aged beer and some seltzer and some weird, wacky flavors. Then I'm also going to tempt you with some really unique like experiences, because like when I was in Germany, I spent a lot of time in France, and I loved going to Paris and trying an experience called absinthe,
Oh
right?
yeah.
Which is a
Yeah.
wormwood liquor that was known as the Green
Crazy.
Fairy. It's for years and years, it's got this like mystique around it that it was outlawed in the United States, which was an antiquated prohibition law. But actually, so I bought an authentic absinthe tower and
Awesome.
glasses and everything from the absinthe spoons to the sugar cubes, to provide people with an absinthe experience,
Yeah.
because I fell in love with that in France. And then over in Denmark, they have this really unique cherry wine. So it's almost like a mead, which is made out of honey. This is and it's like a mix between, if you were to make wine out of cherries instead of grapes, because they get so cold that the water freezes in the cherries, and what's left is the really rich syrup. I carry that product from Denmark,
That sounds
which
good.
if you look at their website, it's like, if you want to try that, you're going to go to Atlanta or Chicago or New York City, on the Eastern Seaboard. We're only one of 4 cities that carry something like that. So we're going to provide you with an experience, so you don't feel like you're just, running down to your corner and just, grabbing a beer and chugging it and going home.
Absolutely. And I mean, I think experience is key. I'm 40. I want to experience my life. It's, I mentioned earlier that when I was in high school, I would drink all the cheapy, whatever beers. It was because we just wanted a buzz. Let's be honest. We all thought it tasted like shit. None of us liked it, but we would just drink it because we wanted a buzz. That's not my goal. My goal now is the experience. I want to try new flavors, new tastes, new smells, new sights, just new, I want to try all these things.
Love it.
And I think that as you get older, you really do start to dive into that experience driven lifestyle, and, a lot of the younger kids are far more ahead than we were, at that age, because I've even got, like, I have a 20-year-old, which dates me, but I have a 20-year-old and she understands experience. I didn't understand experience when I was 20. I didn't get it, but she gets it, because again, like with the internet, and you can say good or bad with the internet, whatever, it is what it is. It's here and we're using it and it's whatever, but they're able to see a lot of things and understand a lot more things. And they're able to tap into the idea of why they should really value experiences. And, I love that, traveling is great, but that's not always feasible, to travel, broad and far and run to Denmark to go drink some wine. I would love to go do that today, but can't do that today. I can come to your place. I'm in Southern Ohio too. So I love that you're offering, lots of experiences that somebody can't find out of in their normal, area typically.
I learned that years ago. I've always had a charitable aspect, and I feel like a need to serve.
Yeah.
Right. So I've always felt like I need to give back. I need to serve. I feel very fortunate that I do what I love. And I learned that years ago when people were always, talking about charity raffles and silent auctions and things like that. And the best thing that sells and the biggest draw is going to be an experience.
Yep.
Years ago, when I lived in Columbus, I was on the board of the American Cancer Society. And we did a big fundraiser out at the Wexners. They own the limited corporation, Les Wexner owns Limited. Yeah. We had a fundraiser on his property, and we ran we called it the Cattle Barons Ball, and it was a charity casino for the night, and literally that in itself was an experience. And then everything that we offered for the silent auctions and things like that were experiences. Yep. If you had something that was just, a material thing, it got little play. But if you offered an experience, that's what people wanted.
Absolutely. We talk about that all the time. my company specializes in experiences because we specialize in emotional driven marketing. So like most people are emotional buyers. And the reason
Mhm.
experiences work is because we buy with our emotions. Think about the things, even on like Facebook, like we're streaming to Facebook right now.
Yep.
The things that we react to is going to be something funny or something inspirational or something sad or, whatever. It's going to always be tied back to an emotion. And that's why experiences are so important is it's so much more than the beer you drink. It's the experience around you that's created. It's the emotion that you feel when you're drinking that beer or when you're talking with your friend or when you're sitting with your lover or whatever the case may be. It's that feeling, that emotion. And that's why, experiences are king in my opinion. And that's the reason why, places like your establishment are so important to, not only travel and tourism, but obviously to every household within there, because as people start to really, this minimalist like mindset has become very, very
Yeah.
popular. People are not thrilled with the stuff that's much anymore. We're like, forget the stuff.
Yeah.
I'm like that.
If it
I
doesn't
was
spark joy.
exactly.
Yeah.
So what sparks joy? Experiences. So, we're all kind of shedding off the stuff that hasn't been serving us. But what always serves is the experience.
Yep. Absolutely. Absolutely. And that's literally when that's what I try to provide is an experience.
Absolutely. And I have not been to your place, but I'm definitely coming. You sold me on it because I'm like, heck yeah. You've listed about 5 things that I'm like, yeah, 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 yeah.
Yeah, I didn't even tell
I'm
you
gonna be
about our
coming there.
bourbon selection
Oh,
and our
see
bourbon
there.
flights. I do
6.
a
There
bourbon
you go.
night. I mean,
Mm.
I'm a Southern Ohio boy
Yeah.
and through and through, and we're right on the tip here of the Bourbon Trail.
Yeah.
So, my dad was
It's
from Kentucky. I was raised on bourbon.
yeah.
So, we have a pretty good selection there at 16 Lots as well.
That's awesome. Yeah. And I think do you have Blanton's? Blanton's is my favorite. I'm willing to try others.
Right now, it's very hard to get
It is
Blanton's,
hard to get. I have
but we will
some and I
get it.
feel like, oh
We get it
yeah.
occasionally. We get it
Yeah.
occasionally.
I'm surprised. It's funny. Back when I started loving, it wasn't that hard to get Blanton's when I
No,
started loving it. It was like whatever, just ordering bourbons. I'm going to pick
sure.
up Blanton's. But now it is. I was surprised. I already had some, so I wasn't looking for it. And I had somebody come over and I gave them, they're like, oh my God, Blanton's. And I also at Thanksgiving, I was making a bourbon chocolate pecan pie, and people are like, "You're using Blanton's for it?" And I'm like, "Yeah, because I like the flavor." I didn't realize it was like so
Yeah,
hard to get at that point because I usually buy a bunch of bottles at one time, so I've had it, for a while.
yeah.
So I didn't realize.
Since I was raised on bourbon, being
Yeah,
a Kentucky family, and back in the '90s, I used to. This is a weird flex, but I used to just stop to my weekly like poker game and buy a
yeah,
bottle of Pappy and
yeah,
take it to my weekly game, and we would drink it the whole thing. It was $40. And we
yeah.
would drink it that night playing poker, and then just next week, just stop at the liquor store and get another one.
Yep. It's funny these things that become like, wait, what? It's worth. I mean, it's good. Don't get me
Yeah,
wrong. I mean, I guess that's why you can't hardly find it. But I honestly didn't realize until I opened my last bottle, and so I was like, good luck getting another one. I'm like, what do you mean? I had no clue. I had zero clue that it
yep,
was so hard to get right now. So I'm kind of sad, and I'm already having to look because I have opened my last bottle, and if I run
right,
out, bad things are going to happen. It's gonna be
yep.
bad. So what is your favorite? Like if somebody was coming to your place and they're like, okay, I'm not a big beer drinker,
Mhm.
and this somebody might be me, but I'm not a big beer drinker. What do you recommend?
So the first thing I always say is, if someone says that, I say, "Do you like sour beer?" And by sour beer, I mean not traditional beer.
Okay.
So sour beer doesn't mean that it has to be like sour, like puckering sour. It could be something super fruity. We consider those sour beers as well. So it could just be that if you're a wine drinker, you're
Hmm.
probably gonna like a sour beer. It might be, it's not like a big dry red like a cab or something, but like someone that likes a Moscato
Hmm.
or something on the fruity side. um, that definitely is the style that I start with, because they're just pleasantly tart. They're not
Yeah.
necessarily sour.
Yeah.
That's just what we call them.
I typically I just to give you some example, like I said, I used to like Guinness, but I have liked a lot of ambers. I typically have always gone with darker.
Yeah.
There's been a couple stouts I like too.
Yep.
Typically darker beers is what I've always kind of gravitated towards when I drink beer.
Yeah. Well, we have, so like on tap right now, I have a French toast porter. So
That sounds
someone that
good.
says like, I'm like, well, do you like sweet things? Because this thing can be cloyingly sweet. It's
Mm,
basically it's a very nice English porter, but then it's also brewed with maple syrup with vanilla and cinnamon.
mm,
So you can put that in front of someone, they can smell it. The aroma is maple syrup, and then when they taste it, you get the maple syrup right away, but it finishes, and you taste the vanilla and the cinnamon. So someone that's not
awesome.
a beer drinker would never
Yeah.
expect that. Like they can have
That's
that
very
experience.
unique.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's very unique. I love that.
yeah.
So, what's your favorite beer that you have right now?
Oh man,
It's
I
hard.
like a
Yeah.
good like German Pilsner.
Okay.
So we have a beer called the Major, and that's what I drink the most of. And it's just like a really so like Miller Lite and things
Okay.
like that. Those are Pilsners.
Okay.
They're just a lighter version of that. Ours is a very traditional, 5.2% German Pilsner, all German ingredients, very light on the hops, but just enough hops where it kind of gives you that dry finish. So you're just like want to drink another
I
drink.
I just wonder if that's not what because I like dry. I just
Oh
wonder
yeah,
if that's not what I would like.
yeah, a nice Pilsner like that would be great. And then I have a hard stop at 3 o'clock.
Hmm?
So I wanted to make sure that we mentioned the charity
Go
fundraiser
ahead and do that real quick.
this year. So this year I started Sergeant Dell's virtual tip jar, and that is you can Google it. It's a GoFundMe, but basically all the press and notoriety that I get with the beer fast, I try to do something charitable with that.
Absolutely.
So because the pandemic hit, 90% of my friends and family so hard last year, I decided to raise funds for the Southern Ohio bars and restaurant workers, and also
Hmm.
Northern Kentucky.
Yeah.
So 100% of the funds I raise go directly to the workers that are counting on those tips and all this business that has been cut out from under them. And right now I'm a little over $12,000. So I'm over halfway. Today
That's
is
awesome.
day 28 of my fast, and I'm down just under 30 pounds.
That's awesome.
So people can follow along on Instagram at Sergeant Dell, and they can also donate at Sergeant Dell's virtual tip jar. And all that money is going to go to the bars and restaurants at the end of Lent.
Which is so needed. And I love that
Yeah,
you're doing that. So make sure you check out on Instagram. I'll make sure and I'll put the links in the comments when we get off here too. And for
awesome.
everybody that's listening, thanks so much for tuning in. You can catch the replay on our Facebook page, Successfully Chaotic, and also our YouTube channel, Successfully Chaotic.
Yeah,
And until next time, thanks a lot.
awesome.